Hello everyone, my name is Chuck. You're watching episode 155 of Let's Plant. In the last episode, we were working on our freestanding pergola and we actually finished the entire build. As you can see, everything's right here. And you might see a bunch of changes since the last episode. So I'll give you a closer look and see if you can find the differences. So I think one of the first things you would notice is the lack of shade cloth. I took it out yesterday. And thanks to our hook design that we developed, it is so much easier putting on or removing the shade cloth at will. And yeah, I really like this system. A lot of you have also commented about removing the baskets from the center and hanging them at the sides. I definitely agree with that idea. So what I did for now is just to place 3 baskets on either side. Because if you'd remember, we have 5 beams at the top, and for now, I decided to keep the front and back beams empty. So as you can see, positions 2, 3, and 4. Another thing you'll notice is that I have a 4th ledge now, and I built it earlier this morning. And I really like how it looks because I think it rounds up the whole, the whole population thing. It makes it look fuller. I was contemplating building a 5th, but at this rate, if I go further down, it would be covered by some of the Patreon plants, and the Patreon plants are quite big. So yeah, maybe holding off for the 5th, it's a good idea. Another thing you might have noticed is that I have all of these plants in here. If you've been following my Facebook, you would see the progress shots that I've been making as I was trying to decide how the plants should be arranged when they eventually get here. And right now I have them in random pots. I haven't really worked on the whole theme yet, but I just wanted to have a feel just to see how they would look, with things, the mix of trailing and clumping, a bunch of rosettes as well. And I think I kind of like this, how they'd look. So yeah, we're going to go with that. Now, apart from all of those changes, there's a bunch of things that I'd like to do. So in this episode, we'll be going over my plans for this ledge system that we have here. And hopefully we would be able to start working on some of them. So let's start. So one of the first things that I would like to do, based on your comments and something that I definitely agree, is that it would be a lot better if there's no hanging baskets right here in the center to obstruct the view of all of these ledges. And yeah, doing that, placing all of the baskets to the sides, it made a huge amount of difference. And I don't know, everything looks a lot cleaner, less cluttery. Even though we are going to create a clutter here in a second, but yeah, everything looks more in place, for lack of a better term. Another thing that I've decided to do here is to get rid of all of the bright pots. So it would mostly be something that would work well with the grayish blue that I decided to use here. So I don't know, maybe black pots would work, or even these purple pots here, they would probably work as well. And I would like to go with the purple pots because I have a stupid crazy amount of these. Let me show you. So these are just the ones that do not have plants in them. I have a whole lot of other pots that are currently holding a lot of flower stalks and pots that are already containing plants. So yeah, I don't think we would have a shortage of this, and we would be able to fill all of the ledges with purple pots. So yeah, this is not going to be a problem. Another option we could do is just to round up all of our terracotta pots and maybe paint them, but I don't think I have anywhere near the amount of purple plastic pots that I have. So yeah, and most of my terracottas are holding some echeverias in them, and I think I'd much rather have my terracotta holding the echeverias, because echeverias, they do not require that much water, and in my climate, terracotta pots, they are perfect for these types of plants. So yeah, and as you can see behind me, the plants that I'm going to be using mostly are ground cover type of stuff. So sedums, pachyphytums, Echeveria, and those things require more water than Echeveria. So porous pots, not really a good idea. Now, as for the types of plants that I want to go into the ledges, I want them to be a mix of Crassula, sedums, maybe some rosettes. And you know, I tried doing something here. I might even include some of the trailing plants. So, you know, just so there's a variety in what we see here. Some of you suggested doing a color scheme of some sort. So maybe all of the plants of a certain color would be on one ledge and other plants another ledge. While that might be a good, you know, a good arrangement, but I am partial to doing something like this. Not necessarily just a blind mixture of plants, but it's more of I'm going to work with textures and lengths, I guess. Say for instance, this opalina that you see here, it is flanked by two clumping and trailing plants. So this is a Crassula pellucida subspecies marginalis, commonly known as Sedum little missy. You know, vendors screw this name up a lot because this is a Crassula, not a Sedum. Completely wrong genus, man. But anyway, I digress. So what I want to do here is have some rosettes peeking out of some of the clumping and trailing plants. So we would have something like this here. Hopefully in time this would spill over this ledge right here. Then the rosette would pick out somewhere in between. Then another spilling plant right here, like this Senecio peregrinus, or the string of dolphins. Then maybe another rosette. Doesn't have to be rosette on, then off, then on and off again. It could be two rosettes together, or maybe a bunch of trailing plants and clumping plants together. You know, we just have to mix and match and see what works visually. And then we also have to worry about this thing. So these are my hanging baskets, and right now I do not have a whole lot of trailing plants. As you can see, I have a Sedum Burrito here. I think I have donkey's tail somewhere. I've got lots of pearls, string of beans. I don't know what else I do have. But anyway, rest assured, I think I have enough variety. Do I? I probably have enough variety to have one different type of plant per hanging basket. So 6 varieties. But yeah, it's a problem that we're going to worry about later on in this season, because what I plan to do is to have or to create one basket at a time. Maybe try to finish them before we get to winter, so I do have a bit of time. We are only about to start autumn next week, later this week, March. And yeah, we're at the end of summer, and hopefully I would be able to gather enough plant material by then just to start off our hanging baskets. But you know what? I would like to start working on this Sedum Burrito that you see here, because this is a rather old basket. I have had this in this basket for about over 2 years now, going 3, and I haven't really been taking care of it. So later on, when I take this down, you'll be able to see how much neglected this is. There's a lot of empty, bare, bald spots in the middle, and there's a lot of new growth with this, which is good. But you know, I would like to be able to reset the whole thing and start fresh, because I would like this to be very healthy, and especially now that it seems to be growing a lot. So what I want to do with this is to refresh this basket. I'll be removing all of the plants, replacing the soil, placing some fertilizer, and hopefully this sticks really soon, and then it would do well in this spot. I am counting on the fact that we are not going to get any heat waves anytime soon, but worst case scenario, I could always replace the shade cloth, you know, just to give them some cover again. So yeah, we could do that. I also haven't decided if I want to do an arrangement on each basket, because as you can see, they're far up, too high, that most people would not be able to see the arrangement anyway. All they would see are the trailing plants, and I would definitely want to leverage on that. So these plants here would be trailing freely. I would give them as much nutrients as they would need just to be able to trail, and hopefully within the next year we would see some growth. Maybe they could be this high. And to contrast with the arrangement of the baskets, I would like these plants right here to be slightly trailing but not by much, so maybe just right above the next level, or just maybe just touching the next level. But I do not want them to skip over and reach the level after the next level, so 2 levels down. This string of dolphins is getting close to the limit that I would allow it to grow, and if it grows any further, I'll just simply take cuttings and use it to seed another basket full of those. So I think that's going to be my general strategy moving forward for these ledges. Now I only need to find all of the plant material that I'll be using here. I have been posting a lot of plants in my Facebook page. If you've seen those, then you probably have a good idea of what I wanted to use. But yeah, I haven't really posted all of the plants. There's a whole lot that I can see right now over there, which could work in here. But yeah, lots of choices, lots of options. We have lots of time until the end of autumn, and yeah, I don't think I'm in any rush. But it's, you know, I'm so excited. I just am trying to imagine those plants sitting here already. I keep mentioning the Patreon plants, but I haven't really shown you them in the last few episodes. So those of you who have not been following this channel for quite a while, or at least if you've only started maybe within the last few months, you might not have seen this. These are the Patreon plants. These are plants that are sponsored by my Patreon sponsors. So I've given my sponsors the choice of which plant to go into any of these 5 pots. So on the far left is an Echeveria Arlie Wright. It has been named Charla D by Linda. This is an Echeveria Frills, otherwise known as Echeveria Tutti Frutti here in Australia. It has been nicknamed Maridel by my sister Camille. This is an Echeveria Zorro. This has been nicknamed D'Artagnan by my friend Tom. This is an Echeveria Monaloa. This has been nicknamed Lourdes by Q2. I now realize that we haven't really given this a nickname, but this is a Patreon plant sponsored by Oskerino. We swapped out, well, he originally sponsored my largest cante, which he nicknamed Rick Astley. But in keeping with the theme, since as you can see, all of them are freely plants and Gibiflora based, so we decided to replace it with a Gibiflora hybrid, and we ended up with Dix Pink. So if you've got the time, man, give me a name and we'll properly name this little guy here. Hopefully you could see where I'm going with this, but basically what's going to happen is that these large pots would be standing somewhere here, somewhere at the back, so I have to backfill this huge gap, this huge depression that we have right here. Because when we've been working on the pergola, we had to dig around, and this used to be higher. So now we're going to fill it back in and place these pots again. And if you could imagine, this is not even the final height that I wanted to go. It would be slightly higher than this, so maybe the plant would be just above the lowest ledge, which is why I decided not to go through with the 5th ledge idea, because if I put something down there, it would not get enough sunlight anyway. It would be covered by these plants and no one would be able to see them properly. So yeah, we're stopping with the 4th. So I'm just going to put this back out again, just so we have no obstructions. And one final thing that we have to do here is to get rid of all of the weeds. As you can see, there's one here really tall now. There's a bunch of grass growing in between the rocks. More weeds. We have to clean them. Something I'd like to improve on this section is breaking up the monotony of this here, because as you can see, it has been mostly filled up by elegance and it's starting to look quite bland. So I would like to break it up a bit by making some sort of design in here. And one of the ideas I've been entertaining is creating some sort of a lotus sitting on top of a lily pad. And to do that, I'm going to use this cante, plant it right in the middle, then surround it with green plants. So those green plants would contrast against the blue and they would form a shape of a lily pad. So if you imagine green plants surrounding this cante, I think that would be nice. Also, this cante's roots are going under and I think it wants a bigger space to grow into now. And finally, I need to do something about this bowl. This used to contain this large Echeveria Mary 2 that you see here, but I had to remove it because I brought it to the the competition last year. But now that that's done, I would like to move it back into its rightful place as part of the Patreon display area. It's a huge head, as you can see, and I would like to frame it within a large bowl just to make it look more, I don't know, more proportional, I guess. So that was just a short list of the plants that I have for this area, and I really am in the mood for some planting, so I guess let's get started with this thing. I'm going to break it apart and hopefully replant it with something more fertile. Here's what it's looking right now. You can see that there's a lot of blank stems like this one, although there are some pops growing around it, which is good. And hopefully we would be able to separate all of the stalks and replant them properly. Now, a lot of you are asking me about how to handle the burrito, because they're having a hard time with keeping it intact, especially with the leaves just popping off easily. Yeah, I'm going to do that now, but I'm placing the details and close-ups in a separate video. I'm just going to show you the finished product right here. So maybe within the next few days of the release of this video, I might be putting out a separate video showing how I separated this clump or how I resetted this basket, and hopefully you get to learn some stuff from that. So the link would be here once it's up or down in the description. So I've already worked on breaking apart my basket of Sedum burrito. They are all piled down here. So what I want to do is to clean up this pile and replant them in another basket. So let me just grab this one. Yeah, I would need to prepare my soil mix, and once I have that, I could plant my burrito in here. So let's grab some soil and I'll be back. So for my soil, I'm just going with a mix of, well, my usual potting mix. In the case of potted plants, that's usually 1-to-1 ratio of regular, well, cheap potting mix and scoria. Now, I use scoria because scoria is relatively abundant here in Victoria and they are pretty cheap. So, you know, I just use whichever is available to me. Before we start using them, we have to mix them thoroughly, and I'll be back. Apart from my soil mix, I also need to prepare a bit of fertilizer because I just used a cheap potting mix as base, and it needs some nutrients amended just to make it, you know, suitable for growing plants. And right now, these are in growing mode. Now, just to make it easier to work in, I'm going to remove the chain, the hook for now, and put it back once I'm ready. And here's the last one. So what we're doing basically is to infuse our soil mix with some fertilizer. So let me just add some soil in and add some fertilizer. I'm just going to follow the instructions here. So I've already computed it beforehand. Based on the amount of soil that I'm placing here, I think I would need roughly 2 scoops. So I've already placed 1 scoop so far, and here's the second scoop. And let me just mix it around evenly before we get planting any of our Sedum burritos. So yeah, let me just mix it and I'll be back. Pro tip, when working with soil that you have just mixed, especially with loose materials such as scoria, make sure to mound in the middle, you know, create a mound over the height of the pot that you're using, because this soil is surely to compact and compress a bit more. So it helps having extra now, so that once they settle down, they would evenly form, especially if you want to have a high level around your pot. In this case, I do want to have a high level because I would like the plants to trail rather readily. So the next step from here is just to insert our cuttings. Now I'm going to start from the center because I want it to be full and not like the way I did it before, where I just planted at the sides and hope they spread around. So yeah, I'm going to start in the middle like so, and I'll keep doing that until I have the whole thing covered. So I'm halfway through the entire process now, but I would just like to show you how I do things. Let's say I'm working with this branch. What I actually do is to chop off part of it rather than trying to use the entire stem, because for one, I did say I am going to reset them, and what that means is I want to use the dense part of the plant rather than the older like this one, it has lots of bare spots here, so I would like to be able to reset it so that it grows uniformly from now on. And what I would usually do is to find healthy parts of the stem, and if there are bare parts, that's an especially perfect part, because what I would want to do is to remove all of the leaves around up until that point to create this little piece sticking out right here, and I could just insert it into the soil like so. Easy peasy. I'm going to do this for all of the stems that you see here on this one. Just rinse and repeat. I am dumping all of the leaves that I picked onto the basket, just so you know this would eventually grow and fill up the baskets, or if not, they would rot and provide nutrients for the rest of the plants. So I'm going to keep doing that, and in the next scene this will be full. Yeah, I think that was the last of it, and I just have to reinsert this chain properly so I could put it back up on the basket and on the ledge. And as you can see, I've got all of these stumps, and I've left a lot of leaves on the stumps. That way I could use this to seed another batch of cuttings, so I could just plant them in some of my pots like so. Wow, this has a thick root system. So I'm just going to plant this in, and hopefully in a season or two I'm going to have lots more of the burrito. So here's what the basket of burrito is looking like right now. There's a bunch of them and only a few of the strands falling off, trailing off the sides, as you can see. And I did it that way because I mainly took a lot of cuttings and planted them in the center. That way, when they eventually grow out, there's a lot of heads to start with. And I've also inserted lots of the fallen leaves in between the plants, because that way, as I mentioned earlier, they would either sprout and create even more heads, or if they dry out and die, they would serve as mulch and protect the other roots, the stems of the other plants, and as well as providing nourishment to the rest of the plants when they do die. So it's a circle of life, man. With one of the baskets done, I would like to get started on some of these sedums that you see here and use them to fill up these purple pots. And yes, I have decided to use purple pots. I'm just going to work on a few pots, as you can see here, and just to show you my process, and I'll do the rest off screen because there's a lot of plants to go through. So let me get started. Again, I'm using the technique that I showed you in my other video, how to handle the brittle or fragile plants. In this case, yeah, I can be a lot more rough with these plants because they are tougher than the usual. So let me just grab several strands here. Just several strands to work with. In fact, maybe I don't even have to pull them out completely, because what I plan to do anyway is just to take some cuttings of the heads and just stick them in here. So yeah, let me just fill this up with soil and we shall continue. As mentioned, I'm taking cuttings, so I'm just giving you this vantage point so you don't see the shadows. Basically what I'm doing is to cut off heads from the stems, and yeah, it's as simple as that. Alright, so I'm happy with this spot and I'm going to set it aside now. I'm going to do the same for the rest of these plants and I'll be back. And here they are, finally in position. They don't look as good as they should be right now because they are just fresh cuttings, but eventually, maybe in a few months or in a few seasons, they would grow out and eventually start trailing over. And that's what we want to see.
While working, I noticed a neighbor's cat sleeping on my plant shelves.
Something else I mentioned earlier that I would like to do is to break apart the monotony of this sea of blue right here. It is completely overrun by Echeveria elegans, and I'd like to have some sort of focal piece right here. And what I was thinking is to create some sort of design where we have a lotus flower sitting on a lily pad. Portraying that lotus flower would be my Echeveria cante, and the lily pad would be a bunch of green rosettes, which would be my Echeveria set Oliver. Before we could do that, let's clear around the area just so we have some space to work in, and I'll be back. So I've got the path all clear, and here's the plants that I'll be working with. So here's the green to be provided by the Echeveria set Oliver, and in the center would be this Echeveria cante. Now this cante has already overgrown its pot. Its roots are going out of the tiny holes at the bottom, so I think I'll be planting it directly on the ground. And as for these, I'll be planting it surrounding the cante just to provide a bit of contrast. And again, we could pretend that it is the lily pad. So yeah, let's get started. Alright, so we've done a lot of things this episode. We have added a fourth ledge. We worked on our first basket. We transplanted some of the sedums into the purple pots. We've also added in our lotus flower, which is basically the cante surrounded by some of the set Oliver. We have also removed some of the weeds because they were starting to get annoying. And the only thing left to do here is to do the rest of the pots that would be going into the ledges. In the next episode, I might be showing you a more finalized version of the ledges where we all have purple pots and appropriate plants inside of them. So if you do not want to miss out, make sure to subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.